Self-aware millennial.
So I have a lot of stories that are, unless you grew up with someone who is in a wheelchair, like I don't know that it's applicable. And my favorite funny one, I guess, is because I grew up with a sister in a wheelchair, I didn't use an escalator till I was like 9. And I went to the mall with my mom, my friend and her mom, and they like got on the escalator and I was too scared. I didn't know how it worked. And so I got stuck at the top and just cried. I'm like because 9 years old. And of course,
So you were going down the escalator or up the escalator?
I was going down the escalator and got scared. So I got stuck. And so they had to like run back up and like go up the up escalator, which of course is, not like right next to it. It's across or whatever. And I'm also a giant. I'm very tall. And I was when I was younger too. Mm-hmm. So even though I was 9, I probably looked a solid 13.
Yeah.
So like the people who didn't understand what was going on was just very confused as why essentially a teenager is standing at the top of an escalator crying. But it's one of those things that there's a few things in my life that I don't realize are odd until something like that happens. Like it never. I had no reason to go on an escalator until I was 9 or whatever. When I reach into rooms to like find like light switches, because we built our house, they're all built lower so that my sister can reach them. So anytime I like reach into someone else's house, I always reach way too
low. Yeah.
I get really like tripped out with beneath like sink cabinets because we didn't have any, so she could drive up to them.
Yeah.
So it's things like that I don't find weird until I like look at someone else's house. I'm like, oh, you have no idea what I'm talking about.
Gotcha. Cool. Wow. That's actually very inspiring. I think that's cool.
I have fun talking about it because it's one of those things that people don't. Why would you? You would have no reason to think about that if that's not in your everyday life.
Right.
And so I'm also very passionate about like
raising awareness for people with disabilities, especially folks in wheelchairs. Like, yeah.
And you can't find someone more passionate than me about parking and handicap parking spots if you are not handicapped.
Oh my gosh. I have, I'm the same way. I'm like,
you can walk. The lines are there for a reason. That's not a parking space. Get over yourself.
Oh man. Well, you know what? That story, I'm just going to keep it. And that's going to be like the ponytails, even though it's not like an official ponytails. I personally I can't empathize with that because at least no one in my family growing up was in a wheelchair. And, so like we had the regular height of light switches and everything. But towards the time my grandma she passed away a year ago, either today or tomorrow. Wow. But for like 3 years or so before she passed, she was, they had to build a ramp for her so she can get up and down through the house when she couldn't walk down our stairs. And so, it kind of put things in perspective for me about, how difficult it can be if you can't walk, if you can't bring yourself places, like you've really limited.
There's a really amazing documentary on Netflix right now called Crip Camp that talks about Camp Jened, which was a camp in like the 50s and 60s designed for people with disabilities, and how that camp gave those people so much kind of freedom and independency that a lot of those people became the leaders of the ADA movement and the accessibility movement. And the documentary goes to that as well. It's incredible. I, as someone who felt like I was pretty aware and like a good kind of ally, watched it and I was like, I'm so ignorant and haven't at all been understanding what I need to be doing. I think this is just, I don't know, this is again, me kind of specifics.
Yeah.
I think I just assumed that the ADA had been around for a long time. Because I just grew up with my sister, and of course I was a kid. I didn't really know what we had to do to make that work and happen.
Right.
The ADA is as old as my sister. It went into effect the same year. So like, there's a lot of things that I just didn't realize that, you know, in the first 6 to 10 years, my sister was still on waiting lists and trying to get things figured out. And because there wasn't, she was still very much part of the pioneering, not in the fighting sense, but in the, we don't know what we're doing yet. And we have to figure this out. With
almost like the guinea pig in a way, like they're still trying to figure things out.
Exactly.
Wow. I mean, I didn't know this about you and your sister. I would love to even like meet her, like have a conversation with her, just like her experience with everything. Cause I mean, gosh, like there's just really not enough awareness about that. And I mean, I'm the self-aware millennial. This is the Self-Aware Millennial podcast. And like that needs to be out there. So tell her to hit me up. If she's okay with like having a cute little picture of herself on my Instagram, like
love it.
Up. I will.
She talks more than me, and I talk a lot. So she would love it.
Awesome. Well, and what's her name by chance? Just
Dorsey.
Dorsey? Okay, awesome. Yeah. Wonderful. Well, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Self-Aware Millennial. I am your host, J.Mix. We are here with a good friend of mine, theater friend of mine. We haven't done a show together in a while, but this is Haley.
Hi.
And we are just going to kind of be here. It's going to be a pretty low, chill episode. If y'all are not aware, I yesterday did a big thing, and I basically hosted or demonstrated the demonstration for the National World War II Museum, for civil rights for the World War II museum workers and the BIPOC, everybody, not even just the workers, the veterans, the people of New Orleans, and everybody. Like, I just wanted to represent them all and show them that, you know, we're here for them. And I had a bunch of folks that were supporting me in person and online and in spirit, especially I know a lot of the World War II museum workers wanted to be out there when we were doing our demonstration, but you know, that fear from the execs and the higher ups, and they don't want to lose their jobs, they don't want to lose their income. It's so difficult for them to like, it's
especially right now in a time where like it's not as necessarily easy to get another job. It's scary.
Exactly.
It's super scary.
So I feel that, but you know, I did get there. A lot of them, you know, they're supporting me in other ways, which is great. And as of right now, I know I've made it because I've got a lot of different mean comments coming my way, but that's okay. I'm actually pretty cool right now. I've been taking my meds in preparation for all of this, so I'm pretty chill. Like, I'm just like, okay, it's your opinion, it's all good, and we're gonna keep moving, and we're gonna keep exhibiting change and everlasting change for our people. So what we're going to be talking about today with Haley, we're kind of going to go, I mean, like right now we're talking about the awareness of ADA for sure, but we're about to just go a whole 180 and start talking about sex. So it's going to be great. On
a side note though, a real interesting podcast would be talking with people of disability about sexuality, because
I was thinking about that. I was definitely thinking about that. I would love to. That would be great. I'll actually probably write that on the list, and I'll remember when I listen back to this to write it down. Yeah. But yeah, let's so you've already did your story, so that's going to be our ponytails. We're just going to consider that ponytail, and you're wearing a ponytail, so it worked out. I will save y'all the ponytail for today for myself. I actually just started the weekly interactive series again on my personal Instagram, J.Mix Explains It All, and I'm going to try to keep up with it and do it every single week. I think this last one I was talking about like my first love, and it was interesting, especially since that first love also follows me on Instagram and probably saw the video. It's fine though. Like, we're cool.
No, it's fine.
It's fine. So what I want to start talking about, and it's just kind of just going to be like almost like a roulette situation. We're going to dive into it by talking about having sex with the lights on or the lights off. because I know everybody has their preferences, and sometimes like I personally don't mind either way. I feel like for me personally, it's easier for me to focus if the lights are off, I should say, than like, I don't know, seeing the person sometimes and like not wanting to see them. I don't know. I don't know how to like actually explain it. It just depends on the situation, I think. I think it depends on the person. I also just thinks for me, like it honestly depends on the person. Because if the person I'm looking at, like I don't want to be like mean or anything, but let's say I'm not like completely attracted to them in the way that I'm okay with watching them the whole time. Like I'd much rather be in doggy style so I can't see them at least. But
100%.
Otherwise, I'm like, if I really like you, I'll do the face-to-face, I'll do the missionary. But yeah, what are your thoughts on having sex lights on or lights off?
So generally speaking, like sex is dirty. It's a lie. And beautiful for it. But like, I don't know that I need to see it. Like I can enjoy it, get out of my own way. I'm very in my head person. So like the less I have to see and think and whatever, I can just get out of my own way and do it.
Yeah.
The better off I am, generally speaking.
I wonder if it's because we're performers and like we don't want to watch performances. I don't know.
Well, I have a problem in general about questioning people's authenticity and versus like if something's performative.
Same.
So if I can like see you, again, I overthink. So if I can see you and overanalyze what's happening, and then I think that like you're being performative and you're not really enjoying it and it's not really working, then I'm gonna get in my own way. Right. So, and vice versa. I don't feel like I have to perform for you if you can't see me as well and do whatever. You can get into the side note of like, if you're with a really good partner, you shouldn't feel that way. But that's
true. I know and thankfully, I don't think I've ever really had this issue with many partners that I've had, but like I've definitely had those like little instances where I felt like they were trying to make this a porno and like trying to like just say all these things. And I'm like, you don't have to say all this. You don't have to say full sentences if you don't want to. You don't have to. It just felt like I felt like a porn star. Not that I don't mind feeling like a porn star at some points, but like sometimes it just be out of nowhere. I don't know. I feel like a consensual, can I treat you like a porn star is fine and then treat me like a porn star. Mm-hmm. But if it's all, I mean, again, this is also just my preference, but like.
I think it's one of those things, and I think people are really afraid to have like a sex preference talk with their partner, because I think the fear is like, if I tell you something that you don't like or you don't want, you won't like me anymore. Yeah. But also like sex is just so much more enjoyable if you have conversations like that. And you don't need to do like a 50 Shades of Grey contract discussion, but like, just like having a discussion of, I don't really want you to talk to me while I have sex or whatever. That takes me out of it. Or I really don't want to see things because of my own insecurities or whatever. That takes me out of it. And unless your partner, like that's a deal breaker for them, more often than not, it should be, yeah, okay, great.
Like, there's just so many things. Yeah, there's so many things you could switch out and change with sex. Like, I feel like most people's preferences is pretty open. Like, when it comes to what they want, like, if they don't want one thing, there's like 10 billion other things that they can do instead. So it's like, I don't know. As for like the insecurities of having the lights on and lights off, what are your thoughts on that in particular?
So I think, speaking from personal experience, I have had body issues for as long as I can remember. And so for me, it stems a lot from a body issue perspective, which I've been told repeatedly from anyone who I've talked to, partners and therapists and friends and whatever. Yeah. Have you ever taken, and this is like a quote from a movie, so don't ask.
It's okay.
Like, have you ever taken off your clothes and someone been like, nah? No, the answer is no. Right. At least for me, I can't speak to everyone. Yeah. Because more often than not, they're just excited to have sex. Like they're
Yep.
just in it. So
Yeah.
it's not important at that point. So while I logically understand that, the insecurity still is there. And so again, it's for me, it's more about getting out of my own way. It's even if I can logically say, oh, we can have the lights on and they're going to see my body and they still like it and it's still fine. I don't have to worry about it if the lights are off. I'm just like, well, that's not one less thing for me to have to deal with.
Right.
And I do wonder if guys feel that as much, just because women do have so many body insecurities implemented.
So they actually do. And I actually I think it was maybe one of my first episodes for the podcast. I spoke with Lawrence Weber about insecurities. And I think I talked to Caven a little bit as well in a later episode. But men for sure, and, you know, penis owning folks, they have insecurities. They just don't come out with them nearly as much. I know other guys have also like confided in me and they've said, you know, like there are times where like, you know, we'll post pictures of, I don't know, Jason Momoa or someone that's like just really buff, beautiful and whatever, and they are insecure when we do that because they know they don't look like that. They just don't say it as much, but they do feel that. However, they do have, thankfully, the dad bod thing is coming back in style. And like folks actually do like dad bods. I mean, I don't mind them either, I guess. But you know, like if they wanted to go dad bod mode, like they would still get their cookies, I guess.
Yeah. Well, have you seen how much Rihanna's like runway show or in her new like model, she's doing so much more. I mean, she's always been really great with inclusivity.
Yeah.
But there was so much wonderful feedback from men or for penis owning people who were like, I look like that. And I've never seen an ad where I look like that too. And I thought it was really beautiful because I do think, I mean, I just said it. I think sometimes you get stuck in the fact that only women deal with body image issues, which of course isn't true. I think I just always wonder if it's as much. But it was really beautiful to see this moment of kind of
knowing that representation matters, you know?
This idea that it's like, oh, we can be open with this. We can say that this representation is also really exciting to us, which I always think is exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So while we're still on the kind of the subject of insecurities, just because I know for me in particular, I've had instances where, let's say like my boyfriend will say that someone's attractive and, you know, I start comparing myself to them right after, like I just do it subconsciously or unconsciously, whatever. And, you know, I've realized, and I mean, that's happened to him too, where like, I will say, oh God, you know, he's cute or whatever. And, you know, he starts comparing himself and he's like, I'll never look like that. How do you feel that folks that maybe in relationships or seeing someone that they find that they have sex with or whatever, and maybe they have a closer relationship, not necessarily a whole relationship, but like maybe like a friends with benefit situation. How do you think that they should express or like keep showing their attraction, their attention to the people that they are fucking, if you know what I mean? Like how can you reassure them?
So I think that for me anyway, it comes down to like love language. So my love languages are physical touch and quality time, primarily. So I had a partner who was a very trash partner, but this is a good example of something good we did. But we had said like we are two huge flirtatious people. We obviously think other people are attractive. I think it's more toxic to hold it in and pretend like we don't. Let's just be honest about it. And so what we did is anytime that we said, we're like, oh, that person's really attractive, we also just made sure to come back with whatever our partner's primarily love language was. So they would be like, oh, that person's really attractive. And of course, and it always specifically with that partner was their ideal type was short, petite, blonde.
Yes.
Nothing about me is short, petite, or blonde. So I would be like, but then they would just come in with like a hug or, you know, just, and be like, you know, just in like a patronizing way. Cause then it cancels each other out. but it was just an extra, like, or holding my hand or something, just something to let me know, like, yes, that person's attractive, but if I wanted to go get that person, I wouldn't be here. I've made the choice that you're what I want, and this is, you know, this is right for me. And vice versa. When their love language was words of affirmation. So I would say something, I'd be like, oh, that person's hot or something like that. And then I would turn it back to be like, but you're attractive, or you're this, you know, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So I think as long as you're being honest with it first and foremost, and then making sure that you're meeting your partner specifically in their love language, because that's always going to hit harder. If you if their love language is words of affirmation and you just like hug them or something like that, it's not going to hit the same way, and so it won't be as meaningful. And also, if you know your partner's love language, it will connect more too, because then they'll know that you have really thought about them and what they need, and you're giving them that partner care.
Absolutely.
Which I think doubles it.
Wonderful. I love that. Well, let's talk about, just this also kind of something that goes kind of into what we were just talking about, but especially if you're in a partnership with someone that you are seeing regularly, explaining what you want in the bedroom and finding your voice. I know, at least for us women or vagina owning folks, actually, this isn't even, not even vagina owning. This is just like women in general. I'm sorry. Like explaining what you want in the bedroom and finding your voice. Like, it's so much more difficult for, it seems like, women than it is for men, because I don't know, there's the aesthetic of us being, I guess, the whole, God, I can't, my words today. Sorry. Women in general, like, we are already viewed as folks that should keep quiet and, you know, just do our womanly things. So I feel like it's much more difficult for us to like speak up for ourselves. I mean, obviously today, in this day and age, 2020, it's gotten better and better and better, but we're still not there yet. There's still a lot of women that have not fully come to their realities of knowing that they can get what they want in the bedroom, that they can tell, you know, they can like express what they need and not feel bad about it.
Well, I think, and I mean, to an extent, I understand why. I think film and television is really played a part in that, because you see these sex scenes where it's like no communication is had, no foreplay has been done, and everyone just like gets in, comes together, and like is happy and everything works fine. And so there's this concept that that's how it should work. Right. And some of the most important things, I've actually asked some of my friends, like, what are 5 things you wish someone would have actually told you before you had sex?
Whew.
And almost all of them, the like most popular ones are, you may not get off from penetrative sex, and that's okay. That's completely normal, which is something I didn't hear until like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So I was like, this whole time I'm broken, and it's like, nah, it doesn't matter who your partner is, doesn't matter. That just may not be for you. It may not work that way, which then means your partner has to put in foreplay if that's how you work.
Yep.
And it's not being selfish if that's what you need. Like, that's just what needs to happen. And then things like, it may hurt, it may not, don't be scared, don't be stressed, make sure you pee after sex was a big one. Like, these things that like, I think a lot of times get skipped over, that it really is important. But I think one of the other biggest ones was just like,
also the folks that, you know, another one, sorry, I just want to add one, like folks that you have sex, especially if you're having sex for the first time, you said, like, first time? Yeah, the person that you have sex with for the first time does not have to be the only person. Sorry, like, I know some people are like, you know, if this person, I mean, I know folks are growing out of it, myself included, like, just because you had sex with this person doesn't necessarily mean that they always have access to have sex with you, like, ever. That, like, if you don't want to have sex with them anymore, say you don't want it no more, and don't feel obligated.
Anything.
Yes.
And there's also a big one for me personally is, just because you've started seeing someone doesn't mean you have to have sex with them. You can have sex with them when you're ready. And if they say, you can't date me if you're not gonna have sex with me, then you shouldn't be with that person. Like, it's like, ew. because then people are going to date you to have sex with you when they break up with you. Like, it doesn't,
exactly.
like that.
Yeah.
And
it shouldn't be the initiative. And I think a lot of people are like, oh, you've had sex with this person, that means that you need to be together with them forever. Or at least some of the folks that I know, like, they're not everybody, not these days. I don't surround myself with folks like that usually. At least I don't think I do, but it doesn't matter. Even if I did, there's just, there are still some that got married super young, that just, it was tradition. It was something that had happened throughout the years with their own generations of families and everything. And that's what they felt that they needed to do. I mean, it's also religious, especially in it's Christianity.
And in the South. I mean, that's just
and in the South. Yeah.
Well.
But I mean, again, like I said, that there's so much on that I can comment on. That could be having sex in the South. That would be a great episode. Ooh. How about that? Being a Southern girl. Oh,
it's a whole thing. And I would love to talk to someone who was born, raised, and grew up sexually in the North too, and see if they are more comfortable saying what they need. Because I know as a Southern woman, there's a lot of extra layers of be polite, do as you're told, be seen, not heard, whatever you want to put in.
Right.
And so I know not even in sex, but I had a lot of trouble getting over this idea of like voicing how I felt when, specifically when like in sexual situations, or like when in sexual harassment situations, like you're not crazy for being like, that made me uncomfortable. Oh, well, you took it out of context, whatever. Okay, that's fine. But that made me uncomfortable.
It still made you uncomfortable. You felt that. Yeah. You can't change feelings. You can't take that.
And I definitely know in between the ages of 18 and 22, probably 16 and 22, honestly, I ended up in so many situations that I didn't want to be in because I, a very flirtatious person, didn't understand. I, a very flirtatious person, flirted with people, and they said, you now owe me making out or me touching you. And I was like, I don't think I do, but I guess. Because of this idea that, you flirted with me, so you owe me this. I don't owe you anything.
Flirting does not ever mean that you have to go any further than that.
Yeah.
And I think that's another thing, even in folks' relationships, when it comes to people in relationships, they're like, some people are in relationships, monogamous relationships, I should say, and it's not even like they don't feel comfortable with their partners flirting with others because it makes them uncomfortable, because it makes them, like, oh, they're interested in me, they're not interested in me, and, that whole sense of ownership and whatnot. I think that flirtatious people are great. There needs to be more of them. I feel like there's so many more that are flirtatious that can't really show themselves as flirtatious because of the society that we live in that doesn't allow flirtatiousness amongst folks that are already partnered, if that makes sense.
Well, and like, this is a story, and I'm going to preface it with, this girl is one of my very good friends. We're fine now. It's all good. And a lot of drinking was involved in the situation, but she was with her partner. We were all at a bar. She was with her partner, and I, a very flirtatious person, was talking to her partner and was like, oh my, he had a tattoo. And I was like, oh my gosh, that tattoo's so great. And I touched his arm to look at that tattoo. And she exploded. She exploded on me. She exploded on him. That I found out later they went home and had like a multi-hour fight about it. And I was just like, I literally have touched his arm. I haven't. There was nothing. And they were very early on in their partnership, and they have dealt with that now. And she and I have dealt with it. It's fine. But I mean, she and I had to have the conversation of, I was like, if you're not going to be okay with me touching your partner on the arm in a like, let me see your tattoo kind of way, then we can't be friends, because I'm a physical person.
Yeah.
So I'm going to constantly touch people. I constantly am like hanging on people or laying my head on people. And I don't find that to be a sexual act.
Yeah.
And so if you do, then I don't know that we're going to get along, because I can't stop that. I can't change who I am. And of course, if I ever cross a line, that's a whole different ballgame. That's a whole different discussion of, hey, me and my partner or whoever, we are uncomfortable with that touching. Let's talk about that. Okay, great. But I like to think anyway, that I know myself and I know people well enough that it doesn't cross that line. I never do something that makes someone uncomfortable or done in a sexual way unless I intend it to be that way, which I wouldn't do with someone's partner.
Right. But also, I mean, in that regard, you were just being yourself. You weren't doing anything to harm. You didn't feel like you were causing any harm, but her insecurities got in the way of that. And I mean, that's why they had to have the argument and the discussion, and that's not on you at all. Like, you were just being you, and you shouldn't feel bad for doing that. I mean, that's just who you are.
Well, and it goes back kind of in a way of saying what you need from any relationship, from a partner or from a friendship. It's, this is who I am, and if you can't be okay with this, then we're never going to be able to move forward. And you also have to be ready to, I don't like the term ultimatum because I think it's really combative. Yeah. But I do think you have to know what you need. There's a difference between what you want and what you need. And so I do think you have to know what you need from a relationship. And at some point be ready to say, this is what I need. If you can't give it to me, that's okay. It's unfortunate, but it's okay. But then we have to walk away, because otherwise you're going to stay in these horrible partnerships that are never going to be satisfying what you actually need and want.
Right. Yeah. Well, let's talk about, because I did not know you were a third in a relationship before, and I'm really interested to hear about your story on this. I don't think we've ever really touched on this conversation on this platform as of yet, but I know I do have some other folks that will be coming on to talk about this, but I'm really excited to just kind of, you don't have to give all the story if you don't want to, but like, how was it being that, like, you came into the relationship after the fact, or like tell me the story. I don't know anything.
So I met a couple who was in an open relationship. They had, like, that's how I met them. That's what they had said, and they were always that way. I had never before, and have not since been in any kind of situation of that nature. But was very intrigued by it, because it was a time when I was between two monogamous relationships, and I that had ended poorly because of jealousy and things like that.
Gotcha.
And so I was very intrigued by it. I didn't really understand it, and just wanted to have a lot more information.
Gotcha.
And so they both told me, but specifically the male partner.
Can I ask how did y'all meet?
We met, sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to say things, just because I haven't necessarily talked to them about me talking about it.
Okay. Yeah, you don't have to go into detail.
Yeah.
Just, yeah.
We met through theater stuff. I mean,
okay.
So me and the male partner had met through theater stuff, and then I met his partner through him.
Gotcha.
And so I had just gotten a lot of information from them. I wanted to know how it worked. I was really intrigued by it all. And they were apart. They were on two different gigs. So he was here and they were she was somewhere else.
Yeah.
And so he and I had started a relationship while he was here. And I had been told, like, they were in constant communication. It was all fine. It was all gravy. I had not talked to her about it specifically.
Gotcha.
Which
that's where
later become a little problematic.
Gotcha.
Once they left, the female partner reached out to me and was like, hey, did anything happen? I'm planning some other stuff, and it's always just good to know what the last partner was or whatever. And I was like, oh, yeah, that happened. Y'all are in an open relationship. We can all talk about it. It's great. And she was like, great, super, fantastic. Woo. Years went by because they don't neither of them live here. Years went by. And the female partner reached out to me and said, I want you to come up for a birthday. And they really enjoyed you as a partner, and we'd like to try a partner thing. And I was like, me? Okay.
What?
It's very flattering to, we stayed friends and stuff, but it is very flattering to know that I liked you enough as a partner that they told their primary partner, I would like to see them again.
I'd be delighted. Absolutely. You want me?
But then it also came out that the partner had not been honest the original time.
Oh, dang.
And so the female partner had to jump a lot of mental hoops to be okay with me, to be okay with the situation. They had to do a lot of work that I had no idea about.
Right.
And so in this, by doing this, she really wanted to be a part of it. She said, I think I will feel better, which of course I was like, I'm so sorry. She's like, you have nothing to apologize for. You were told we were in an open relationship, which we are. You were told things were being communicated and they lied to you. Like that's where we are. Like why on earth would you think otherwise? But so she really wanted to be a part of things.
I see.
To understand better the connection that we,
that y'all had. Yes.
It ended up where we did do the trip, but for a lot of complicated reasons, she actually had to end up staying. So she didn't get to come.
Oh, dang.
But when she told me that, she said, I was like, we can cancel the trip. We don't need to do it. We were surprising her partner, so they didn't know. It's not like they were going to lose out on anything. Right. And she was like, no, it'll be fine. I will tell them you're coming. I'll tell them what we were planning. And so it's worked out, and it actually worked out in a lot of ways for the better. Because we were trying to surprise them, I got to talk to her a lot more, which of course opened up this kind of unfortunate stuff, which then I had to go back and we all had to have a lot of honest conversations of why that had happened and what had gone down. In order for me to want to go back. I don't want to be a partner with someone who's lied to me, lied to your primary partner. Like we had to have a lot of discussions about it. Yeah. But it also allowed me to talk to her, which it's one thing to talk to a man about an open relationship when you're a female. It's another thing to talk to a female and really see of it more from kind of a direct line, I guess. Yeah. And so I got to understand better why that worked for them, why she was okay with me, why she hadn't been okay with me, and what their rules were and what my part in that played. And so it's one of those things that I think one of the big things that I would say to anyone who is potentially entering into something like that is make sure you talk to both parties. And I had talked to both parties. They had both said they were in an open relationship. Yeah. But then she went away. She was like here for a visit, and then she went away. And I didn't, because I didn't know her. I didn't follow up on that.
Yep. I personally believe that is true. If you have any partners that are with any other like primary partners, for sure, you gotta have some sort. You don't have to be best friends, but you have to have some sort of relationship with that primary partner, because there are going to be things that may be unintentionally left out on things that the primary partner that you're not with or whatever, or what they call the metamour, needs to know. Yeah. I think we kind of went over the termination a little bit on the Chronicles of Non-monogamy episode with Dylan, but metamours are basically like the partner of the partner that you are dating. Yeah. So always like just kind of not keeping in constant contact with them, but just checking in to make sure that they're okay. Like what helps is also just kind of hanging out with them every now and then, like all 3 of you, all 4 of you, however many of you there are, and just, getting to know each other and in settings that are comfortable, like, I don't know, like a game night or something, or I don't know, anything, a coffee date.
Well, and I think there was this, for me anyway, there was this weird, originally there was this weird kind of thing, especially because I had never been with someone who was in an open relationship. Yeah. So I had to do a lot of like mental jumps to get through the idea that like I wasn't cheating, which again, later. Yes. I wasn't cheating. They weren't cheating. Everyone was happy and everyone was fine. Yeah. But because I had such a connection to that one person and not to their partner, it still very much felt like we had a relationship and then they had a relationship, which is, that is a fine way to do it if that's what you're doing. But once she and I got to talk more, even though she and we've never been in a situation together, I've still only been with her partner. But I feel more like it's us versus like he and I still have the primary connection. But I feel more like it's like
two separate relationships. Yeah. And it's it takes a community to raise a child. Like, I always use that like example, but like, in order to raise each other up in your individual relationships, you in those sort of situations, especially in open relationships, like it's kind of like you're kind of building off of each other through these individual instances of relationships. Sorry, like my words are not there, but I hope that makes sense.
Well, and also something I want to touch on just because I think it's important.
Yeah.
When she reached out to me about going on a trip for the birthday, and I told friends of mine, I was like, oh, I'm being flown out to see these people. And they were like, you're being flown for sex? Like, isn't that like prostitute? And I was like, no, I'm being flown to visit people who want to see me. Will we have sex? Yes. But like, I'm not there. That's not what's happening. And so it was this really, and then I had to do a bunch of mental gymnastics because I overthink of like, is this wrong? Is this bad? And I was like, no, I'm surprising a friend for their birthday. Yes, that person has been and will probably be a sexual partner, but like, I'm surprising a friend for their birthday. That's not an insane thing to do. I think there's a really, what's the word I'm looking for? People are so scared to talk about sex. That's why I love this podcast so specifically, is because I was raised in a very Christian household and in a very Christian life. And
I think most of us in the South were.
There's nothing wrong with that. But this concept that because you are Christian means that you don't like sex or don't have sex blows my mind. It blows my mind. And it made me really honestly hate the church and people in it for a long time because I just felt like all of them were better than me. And that they thought that as well. And some people do. But more often than not, that's not the case. Yeah. It's because we're just not having conversations. And I don't mean that everyone needs to tell their entire sexual history if that's not what you want to do. But this concept that, I could say I'm going to visit a past sexual partner of mine for a surprise, and the immediate jump is you're being flown for sex, isn't that prostitution? Like those things aren't equivalent. That's not what's happening.
Yeah. There's a form of, it's technically a form of like gaslighting, manipulation, because they don't know your situation. I feel like if they were in your shoes, they would definitely think differently. But until someone actually gets out of the box enough to even like be able to explore what you were exploring at that time, like they're not going to understand. It takes folks getting into other people's shoes, and like that's just hands down the thing. That's like the whole premise of this whole podcast, like getting uncomfortable by like getting into somebody else's shoes to understand like what it's like for them and to have empathy and sympathy for them.
Yeah. And that's big for me is this, it's a twofold kind of thing because I want people to feel more comfortable talking about sex and being whatever, but also I want to shed this layer of shame that seems to come with it, like that either has been ingrained in me or that is still kind of pushed upon me or whatever. I am not ashamed of any part of my sexual life. Like that's not true, but
what?
But
usually you're ashamed.
It's usually the thing that shame is not a right word. There are instances where I'm like, I was drunk and I wish I wouldn't have done that. Just
okay.
Decision.
Gotcha.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
But like anything that I made a conscious choice to do, like a conscious, sober decision, I'm not ashamed of any of that. I as an adult made choices that honestly worked out, all of them, even in situations that are bad partnerships or relationships. I learned something. I am who I am because of that experience. And so I don't feel like that's a shameful or bad thing. And so for me, it's also it's a form of therapy of being like, I did this and I'm happy about it. And you're not going to tell me otherwise.
It's not like you can change it. Whatever doesn't kill you, like they say, whatever doesn't kill you makes it stronger. And it makes you who you are. If those things didn't happen, like who would you be?
It comes back to those insecurities of people want to project their insecurities and their views and their feelings onto you. And so if I'm uncomfortable with that, you should be too. And then you go around giving people all these insecurities that they don't need to have.
Right. It's so true.
Irrelevant.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about quickly about high and low sex drives. Have you okay, I should ask, do you have a high or a low sex drive first off?
I would say I have a low sex drive.
Okay. And what does that entail? I think I have a high one, but like as of right now, because I've been busy with all this other stuff, I haven't really had a chance to really tap into my sex drive again. Like I have moments of I have moments of I don't know, my months and whenever, or times where I'm not nearly as stressed, where I have a higher sex drive because I have the energy for it. But like right now, like I'm just not, I don't have the time. So like I'm not even pushing to like contact my other partners for sex right now. Like I'm good with my one right now. Right. So what does like low sex drive mean for you? Like what is, like, if you had to give like a definition of personal Haley, like why do I have a low sex drive? Like what would you say?
I think I tend to get my intimacy from other things. I don't want to say as much, but I can get almost as much intimacy from hugging, hand-holding, cuddling, making out than I can from sex. So I don't normally need sex. I'm usually, and again, I
see what you mean.
Yeah, it sounds a little weird, but a lot of the times I'm doing sex for my partner.
Gotcha.
I still enjoy it, and like I'm not going to do it when I don't want to do it, but I didn't need this. Right. I needed this stuff before and after. I needed the before and after more than I needed the in between. And then I have my moments where I'm like, sex now, let's do it, let's go.
Yeah. I feel that.
But more often than not, as long as I'm getting an emotional and then like in a light physical connection, I don't necessarily need sex. Okay. So that's what I consider to be a low sex drive.
Cool. So, okay. So here's the thing. I think a lot of people may get the term sex drive and libido mixed up.
True.
I feel like maybe sex drive has strictly to do with sex, and libido is kind of like when you want to be sexually intimate, even if it doesn't mean like having full on like penetration. Because I mean, again, you think about it, if you're not with a penis owner, sex to you, I mean, if you're with a vagina owner, like that, you're still having sex, but like it just depends on what you qualify as sex. So like when it comes to being like the libido, I guess maybe that's something along the lines of when folks are like always horny. I think libido has something along the lines of like, if you have a high libido, it means you're like always horny, or like you're always wanting some sort of physical, or having to like relieve yourself physically in that way. Right. But
yeah, and I say this too a lot of times. So, and you're gonna have to tell me what you would define as. A lot of the time, I won't necessarily initiate like sexual intimacy. But if my partner does really quickly, I'm like, all right, I'm here. And then
I'm the same way. Sometimes I'm not there and it's like, oh, well, here we go. Okay.
I'm like, if you're waiting for me to initiate, it's going to be like once in a blue moon. Like, but like and again, it comes from, or it depends on, give me time. If you try to jump straight into sex, that's going to take much longer, and I'm going to be much less to be in it. If you get me there, which doesn't take long, but if you get me there, I'm like, all right, go.
Foreplay.
So it's also one of those things of, would you say that's high libido or high sex drive? Or
I would say that would definitely not be a high sex drive. I think I always just think about when people have high sex drives, I mean, they want sex all the time. And I've definitely been in that. I've been in those little splurts. Like I have them like at least twice a month, where it's just like I have like a stream of like 3 to 4 days where all I can think about and want is sex. And I don't care where I get it from or who I get it with, which is interesting. And so like I have to be really careful during that time. Yeah. Because like if someone were to say just a little compliment, I could be like, okay. It's interesting how the body works. And it's so funny. I was thinking about this too, like recently. I was like, a lot of folks, when they're horny, people that they normally wouldn't find attractive all of a sudden become attractive, and then once it's all over, it kind of just goes back to this, even sometimes worse than what you were, I guess, imagining. But also, I think this happens as well, like when I'm drunk as well and horny at the same time. It like gets amplified like 10 times more.
Well,
So
and what's really bad about that too is, especially if it's like the wrong person, like I always have to be really careful of like someone who I know has like expressed some kind of interest in me, that like I'm like I don't want that I don't want that to be inconsistent. Even if I was like, yeah, I could do that once, I know I don't want it to be a relationship or a constant thing or whatever. And so then if they catch me in the wrong mood, I have to like actively be like, no, this is gonna go so wrong so quickly. Yeah. And it will be worse. It'll be one of those things that like, I found you like this level of attractive before, I now find you this level of attractive, but I know once it's done, we're not, it's gonna be, not only am I gonna not find you unattractive, but I'm gonna like not like you as a person, and we're not gonna be friends anymore.
Yeah. And you've gotta, I mean, that's the thing, you have to be choosy about who you decide to have sex with, folks. Sorry, we are talking to an audience still.
Oh yeah.
And I really, just some J.Mix advice from past experiences, like make sure that whoever you decide to partner up with, like, especially if you still want to be friends with them, again, you have to go through all of the precautions to make sure that once this is all over, once your little happy session is over, that things aren't weird for them or for you. And in my particular instance, I'm partnered already with my primary partner. So it's like, I don't want things to be weird between them and my primary partner, especially if we all know each other. Mm-hmm. So like just going through the extra tunnels to just make sure that all of those lines are crossed and dots or I's are dotted and T's are crossed or whatever. Like in an open relationship, it can get exhausting. That's why I think right now, I think what they call like I'm polysaturated, even though like I don't really have many partners at the moment, but like it's still a lot of work either way, just keeping everybody in the loop, because also my partner has other people that he's talking to and possibly seeing and everything. So it's just a lot of stuff always going on at the same time. But as for me, I have a high sex drive. Haley has a low sex drive from our personal definitions. And if y'all have high or low sex drives, I would love to hear about like your personal stances with it. But let's go into the final segment, J.Mix Explains It All, which is basically my advice column. It's based off of the 90s Nickelodeon show Clarissa Explains It All.
Love it.
And yeah, we just kind of talk about stuff that interests us from our listeners. And that didn't make sense. Interests us from our listeners.
Interest the listeners.
Yeah, it's the listeners' interest that they want me to talk about on this platform. Yeah. So I had a question from my IG story yesterday or the day before, but I was not able to answer it yesterday because of the protests and the demonstration and everything. So I told them I would answer it today. And this was actually really good because I think we can definitely talk about this. So sex after a breakup was what this person wants us to kind of talk about, like, and she said like sex after breakup, like right after, like a big breakup. What do you do when it's got to give? Because I mean, obviously you may be emotionally upset with this person, but physically you may still want to have sex with them. And I know in a lot of instances, especially in this society, a lot of us are in monogamous relationships. So like they're going from one partner to another and knowing that they won't have access to this one partner anymore. They're going to have like, it's going to be difficult for them to like, I mean, it depends on the person, but it may be difficult for them to find another partner to start partner up and having sex with. I mean, they still have a physical attraction usually to these people. So you can't, it's not like you can just turn it off after you decide to break up. Like it's like two separate sides of yourself are battling with each other at this point, especially if you have like just a sudden breakup with someone that you've already still had a lot of great sex with. It can be difficult. So, I mean, I don't want to assume, but have you had this happen to you, Haley?
Yeah, for sure. I think, I mean, for me, I tend to have a habit, not always, but I tend to have a habit of like, when we break up, especially if I've been broken up with, I'm like, cool, we're having sex right now. It's a little bit of a power grab.
Yeah.
Just to like, I don't feel as bad about it.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if that's healthy, but it works for me. But I think for me, it always depends on how the breakup went down. Even if I've been broken up with, as long as we left on like mostly good terms, it feels almost like for me, it feels like a celebration of our relationship, the relationship that's and then anytime if you have sex after that, that's when I think you get messy. For me, like the sex right after the breakup, the directly after, for me has never felt messy because I always feel it feels like a goodbye. I don't know, at least to me, it feels, especially if the relationship was good, because just because you break up,
not even a goodbye. Sometimes it's more of a see you later. Not that like see you later, like in the sense that you're going to get back together, but see you later as in like, okay, you know, let's go do our own little thing and we can come back and be friends later, sort of thing.
I think it's just a celebration of what you've had. For me, it's a celebration of what we've had together. That this wasn't a bad situation. Even if bad things happened, like I still care for you as a person. You still
grew together. You still like,
and we can enjoy each other and this moment and this relationship, and then take time apart, grow whatever, and then come back and be friends, or come back and be lovers, or come back and whatever. Not totally in the vein, but my high school boyfriend and I recently dated again, and it was
cool. How was that dynamic? Was it?
It was real interesting. Because it felt very much like a brand new relationship, but also a relationship that had 17 years or 12 years of backstory.
Yeah.
But it was a perfect, well, we didn't have sex in high school, but it was a perfect idea of that. This idea that we had grown together, we had loved together, we'd had this wonderful relationship that was great and good and fine. We went off, did our own thing. We were friends intermittently through that, but we did our own things and had our own relationships, and then came back again and found a new dynamic. I mean, we've broken up now, and so we're not, but we found a new dynamic that still worked for us. And we have broken up now and are still friends. It's still, we were just like, cool, we tried this. I love him so much, and I genuinely think he loves me. It's just not in a romantic
relationship. Just not, y'all probably just aren't a fit for each other in that way, which is fine. But y'all can still add to each other's lives, just not, you don't have to, I don't want to say claim each other, but like you don't have to be like exclusive or like And
so, sorry, I swear I'm getting back to the point.
No, it's okay.
So the whole thing is that like it still feels like I just always feel like that's a big celebration of a relationship. And I think when a relationship ends, you should take the time to celebrate it.
Yeah.
The good, because even relationships that end badly, there was still good in that relationship. And I think you should always celebrate that.
Heard. Yeah. And I think for me personally, to answer the question of the listener here, she asked, what do you do when it's gotta give? I mean, I guess it depends on how many times you actually want to have sex with this person after you've broken up with them, especially if it's a bad breakup. The backstory, when I was cheated on by my boyfriend that I'm still with today, we almost had like it felt so, especially for couples that decide to stay after their partner has cheated on them or they've, betrayed them in some sort of way. There is a breakup feeling there. There is definitely a switch in dynamic, and it felt like we had broken up almost. And I think people are like, a lot of people, I would say that breakup sex. So breakup sex in particular, in my situation, I wouldn't say like, because we didn't actually break up, but we were kind of like going on like we weren't breaking, but like I was kind of giving him his space, and I wanted my space because I needed time to like figure things out. But the thing was like, even though all that was happening, I wanted to still be physically intimate with him. So I remember there was like this one particular time, like maybe a day or two after I found out and everything was happening, and I think we had kind of like not talked to each other much, and things were just kind of it was physically tense already, like with us not being around each other, but like even when we were with each other, because we were still trying to, you know, trying to be cordial with each other and still try to hang out and try to have, you know, recreate some sense of normalcy, that, you know, it got to a point where, like, I forget exactly what happened, but like I remember the sex that we had that night was like the best sex that I had ever had. It was like, it's because it was so explosive. It's because of how I was feeling and everything that was coming up and out. Like, it just exploded like fireworks. And I just, like, I will never forget that night in particular, even though I was so upset with him and like trying to like go through my own insecurities and everything. It's still, it's different. It's a different type of sex that you're only going to get if you're really hurt and you're like upset, you know? And
Absolutely.
like a lot of stuff is going on. So what do you do when it's got to give? I mean, you don't have to take my advice, but I mean, this is J.Mix Explains It All, but you really just got to find somebody else. You got to find someone else quick. I hate saying that, but like, it's so true. Or like, find your community that's going to help you keep you away from that person. Like, you literally have to go cold turkey.
Yeah.
You have to go cold turkey. I'm sorry. It's the only way that you're going to get over it, in order to get to the point where you don't even want to have sex with them anymore. And I would say, like, after the breakup, don't go under or over somebody. I don't know their preference, if they're a top or a bottom, but like, don't go into another sexual situation until, like, because you don't want even that other person that you're having sex with, that's not your partner that you've broken up with, you don't want them to feel as though like you're using them because you know, you're upset that y'all broke up or whatever. Like, you don't want to put that energy on them. So I would say go cold turkey. Don't talk to them, delete them on social media. If you have to, block them. That's really all you can do, especially if you're trying to get
that time.
You got to take that time for yourself to do a lot of self-cares. Don't worry about everybody else and what they think. I mean, they're going to hold you accountable to it too, if you have good friends. And yeah, that is what you should do. And I hope that answered your question. And yeah, this was wonderful. Sorry, I'm like kind of blanking a little bit.
You're okay.
That's what it is. So let's get your social media handle, Haley, because I really appreciate you coming back or coming on that. You know what? Forget it. Okay, so on YouTube, y'all are going to see how crazy this is going to be, because I'm going to be saying all these different things, but here on the actual podcast where they listen, I'm going to edit all this out, because right now, like, my brain is like starting to think about like all the other stuff that was happening that we talked about, and then it's also going back to like what happened before this. So like now my brain is like, anyway, if you have any questions or you need some advice and you would like me to unpack it on this show, please DM me or Instagram me or whatever on Instagram. See, I can't even speak that. You can email me as well at the selfaware@gmail.com. I want to thank Haley for coming and talking to me.
Thank you for having me.
Episode, y'all. I'm gonna give y'all some basic, real information. Like, this episode in particular, I was not even sure it was going to happen, because like I literally woke up and didn't realize like that I remember, like, I thought we were going to be doing this later on in the day. I knew it was happening, but like I woke up not even an hour before like we had to do our.
Both you and I were like on our own planes, and then we were like, we should talk to each other.
yeah. And I'm glad that it all worked out and we were able to do this. And now I have another episode for another week. So we'll see what happens next week. I know I hopefully won't be nearly as busy, but now that I'm also known for being part of the dismantled National World War II Museum, I'm probably going to start to get busy with that and just like talking to different people and like articles and everything that are going to be coming out. So I'm going to be busy with that.
Which is so amazing. It's so, all that work that you're doing is so,
it's wonderful,
like,
and it's humbling it's humbling in a way, but I have to make sure that I'm taking care of myself.
Absolutely.
I'm not getting paid to do any of this. So it's like, I'm doing this all at the kindness of my heart. And it's also, my stomach just growled. It's also kind of taking a toll mentally, which is why I've been taking my meds a lot, just to make sure that I am at least clear and cool, because otherwise, like, I would be a mess right now, like an absolute mess.
Self-care is the most important at all times, but especially now.
But I'm thankful I also have a team with me helping me as well. So like, I'm not the only one in this. I'm just the only really visible person at the moment.
Right.
That's shedding light on stuff. But hopefully we'll have other people that'll step up and come along on the ride with me in the roller coaster that is the World War II Museum. But anyway, if you would like some realistic advice on sex and non-monogamy or whatever from yours truly, you can email theselfworthmillennial@gmail.com or email me or DM me on Instagram. So y'all, thank y'all so much. And if you want, y'all can definitely check me out on Patreon. I got a bunch of other episodes up there that y'all can listen to, especially the Chronicles of Sex and Non-monogamy, which just premiered earlier this month. And we'll have another episode next month with another friend of mine that'll be coming out. Looking forward to that. But if you didn't know, Sex and Non-monogamy is pretty much kind of what we did here with Haley, but less raunchy. I'm sorry, not less raunchy. It's more raunchier on Patreon, obviously. But, just to kind of keep it, I wouldn't say it's PG on this one either, but
it's like a PG-13.
Yeah, PG-13, a little bit more. No, actually, I would say more rated R, because I do cuss a little bit. We do go a little more into detail, but yeah. So if y'all want rated R, rated X, or whatever on this, that's all on Patreon. I can't do that on here, not yet, at least. So I hope that y'all have a great day. Check me out on Patreon. Also, the GoFundMe for the Self-Aware Millennial is up right now. I'm raising money so that I can pay for a team to help me produce all of these episodes, because I'm doing now about 2 to 3 episodes a week, on top of also holding the World War II Museum accountable. And it kind of just takes up, it's a full-time job, and I don't really get paid for it. So I want to get a team together so that we can start promoting and I can start getting sponsors for these episodes and whatnot. So again, you guys, I really appreciate y'all, and I hope that y'all have a great week. Thank you so much, Haley.
Thank you.
Black Lives Matter, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye!